We're seeing a ton of credit cards get updated, Southwest has a great deal, and JetBlue has an interesting challenge. This and more in today's roundup. Big favor before we dive in is to hit the like button to help with the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Starting off, we saw two of the big three issuers of flagship cards do major updates, with the final one potentially teasing two, so with their own card and also the co-branded one. In 2025, I think there are a few metas that the credit card companies are playing with, and there's three big ones. First one's lounge access and happiness within those lounges. In a lot of ways, Capital One opened the door wide open for lounge access for normal people. With that though, there has been a lot more crowding, and that's been a big pain point. Hence why we saw Capital One nerf it, because it was a bit too strong. One thing we don't talk about enough is that even if airline lounges proper, so the ones by airlines, it's still a bit of a mess. It depends on your airport and when you fly, but for SFO, I'd say that United Polaris is probably the best option that's international business only, then probably bank lounges, then Priority Pass, and then United Clubs. And even with Polaris lounges where you can't get in with credit cards, it's still pretty crowded. With United Clubs though, there's been times where we've walked in, couldn't find a seat, and then walked right out. Breaking it down, I'd say Polaris has good food and a good space, bank ones tend to have good food, but okay space. Priority Pass is a mixed bag, but I'd say okay food and good to okay space, and United Clubs are going to be meh for both. With crowding, there's a few ways to deal with it, so limiting access or increasing annual fees to weed out the herd. This leads us into meta number 2, which is profitability. This seems to be a pretty big focus right now where they're trying to increase annual fees, but also increase credits, which might not be subsidized by them, but by partners. If you think about it, it's actually pretty smart. There's going to be an audience that wants to get the card for the clout and social aspect and just to have it. There's a fair share of people in the Bay Area who pay $6.95 who don't even know that there's a lot of benefits that exist on the card. They have it because they know they should have it. And to be fair, I guess at a certain income level for high cost of living cities, it can feel like a drop in the bucket. So that's one audience, and for that one, they could probably increase the fee to $1,500 or $2,000 and they wouldn't care. This is also what you see in a lot of other businesses where whales drive a lot of revenue and you want to maximize value from the whales. At the same time, there are still normal people at the table and you want to make money from them as well. So there's a ton of people that happily pay a fee, but only if they get value back in return and it makes sense. That's where most of us fall. The thing though is that banks have realized this and they want to not play zero-sum games. They want to find opportunities where they're not the ones losing if we win. As a bank, how can you solve for that? And the easy way is to have someone else being the counterparty. So in our case, the reason we're seeing more random credits or what feels like random credits rather than direct ones is because it's the partners paying for the cost and it lowers the cost for the bank. And to be fair, this has worked out really well. If you look at the stock price for some of these, especially a $6.95 one, that might be up 230% over the 5 years compared to S&P, which is up only 100%. So more than 2 times the performance of the index. In theory, this ends up either being a win-win-win or a win-win-lose. A lot of it depending on that partner. So the bank wins because they're increasing annual fees and making more money there, and they're lowering the cost of their credits. The consumers, the ones that get value from the card, win because even though with higher annual fees, they're also getting more credits back, so the net cost is going to be a bit lower. So instead of paying a $200 effective annual fee, you might be either breaking even or coming out ahead with new credits. For the business partners though, it's a bit of a black box, so even though you are getting more signups and usage and better metrics, it's about the long-term value. The business has to make it make sense, but if you compare it to traditional ads, I think it's still worth it. Assuming a similar cost, I'd rather have people download my app and use it every month, even if it's only once a month, rather than spending all of that on bus ads. There also can be a defensive angle, especially for the bigger companies. Case in point, we were definitely more 50-50 on Lyft and Uber back in the day, but once the Uber credit got added, we've become more Uber people. We do still check Lyft if Uber is crazy pricing, but we default to Uber now. So even though Uber might be fronting that cost, they're getting a better customer. Number 3, and one we focused on, is a greater focus on cities. Part of it being that people in cities tend to have more disposable income, but also that things are more expensive. If you consider that credit cards are in the business of making money from swipes, where they benefit from larger transactions and more transactions, then it makes sense to go where the numbers are highest. The other byproduct is that in cities, there's more people fighting for your eyeballs and for attention. Every time we go to New York, I'm always surprised by how many ads we see pretty much everywhere. A lot of them from big brands that you think wouldn't need marketing, especially when they have branches every other street. But yeah, given how expensive advertising can be on the top end for TV, buses, and billboards, it kind of makes sense to take those marketing dollars and literally pass it into consumers' hands. That way they download the app and try the product and get a good deal. If you're looking for another good deal, consider today's sponsor, Moomoo. They're currently offering up to 60 free stocks and 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. There's a few levels to this. You're getting 5 free stocks for depositing $100, an extra 20 for depositing a total of $2,000, and 35 more for depositing a total of $5,000. You also get 2 sweet tickets to the Mets for depositing $10,000. I'm not really a big baseball guy, but I know some of you are. This is what the upcoming calendar looks like for July. Side note, let me know which one I should go to. Also, yes, you can receive all these perks, it just depends on how much you want to deposit. Deposits do need to settle by July 31st, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Outside of the bonus, there's a ton of cool features. You gain access to dozens of news platforms that would otherwise charge you a monthly subscription, like Wall Street Journal, Barron's, Bloomberg, and Reuters. They also have a ton of tools and features if you're into technical analysis. A lot of this is powered by strategic partnerships with heavy hitters like NASDAQ. They're also a registered brokerage that's regulated by FINRA, along with being a member of SIPC. If you're interested, check out AskSebby.com/Moomoo or use the link down below. Pretty solid intro bonus, whether or not you like baseball. Moving to the lightning round, Delta just opened up a new Delta One lounge in Seattle with omakase style dining. Reminder that this is just for Delta One and up right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they add it as a feature of, let's say, a new premium card. Let's say 1 or 2 visits per year. We're also seeing American Airlines do the same thing with a new flagship lounge in Miami. If you're not a fan of the credit card based lounges or the ones for business class customers, if that's not good enough, there is still another level, and they're also expanding. P.S. Private Suites is opening options in Miami and Dallas-Fort Worth. At the moment, they have locations in Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Paris. So if you're looking for that VIP experience, then this might be it. At the same time, if you want that experience, then expect to pay market price for it. Without a membership, you're looking at $1,300 per person for each lounge visit for that 10 out of 10 lounge experience. Happy to see more options, even if I might not be using it. If you're more of a deal seeker, Southwest has you covered with a great promotion where you get Companion Pass. All you need to do is register, book either a round trip or 2 one-ways by June 27th, and travel by August 31st, 2025, and you get 2 months of Companion Pass. On the note of Southwest, they're also making some big moves with airline lounges, European routes, and premium classes coming soon. I know a lot of people that liked Southwest before and what it represented isn't a fan of the direction it's going in, but I'd argue that it's a net good for everyone else. There's a lot of people that previously wouldn't fly Southwest due to unpredictability and the weaker hard product that with these new changes might actually consider it. So that means people that were previously flying American, United, and Delta who are now considering Southwest, meaning that they have more competition, meaning that the product should get better. Or prices get lower, which is still a good thing. We also did end up posting about this over on the new and improved blog. So spent a lot more dev time than I expected on the update, and I think it looks pretty nice. There's a surprising amount of backend stuff. But yeah, check it out and let me know what you think and what we can do to improve it. Also, I am making a ton of calculators for the site, so let me know if there's any you want me to add. Mostly making comparison ones now, so card 1 versus card 2. I am trying to avoid threesomes because it gets a bit too confusing. The one I did try got pretty messy and just a bit too long. I'll link to one down below in case you're curious and want to try it out. A bit in the weeds, but Starlux ordered 10 new A350s to grow their fleet. This was one of the more surprising business class flights that we've been on, so if you want to fly to Taipei, then it's a great option. They also are running a Peanuts collab until the end of the year, and pretty cool experience if that's your jam. They have pretty nice merch, and I like Snoopy, so it's a win-win. Also, if you are into flights, I did a deep dive on the economy versus business over in the Sebby Funk channel. So this channel's earning the points, and that one's redeeming it. Last up is JetBlue's 25 for 25 promotion. So JetBlue's having their 25th birthday, and with that, there was an interesting promo. Almost a challenge. If you fly to 15 of their destinations, you get 150k points. For 20 destinations, you get an additional 200k for a total of 350. If you do 25, you get all of the above, and also 25 years of Mosaic 1 status. For this promotion, it's going to count flights from June 25th to December 31st, 2025, so you have about 6 months. I weirdly spent more time than I should researching this and almost pitching it to Mandy, so I'm going to share everything and you can make up your mind whether it makes sense. Hopefully it saves you some time. 15 destinations for 150k points is about 10k points per destination. If you do 20, that's about 17.5k per destination. That's not really accurate though, and I'd frame it a bit differently. For that additional 5 to get to 20, you're getting additional 200k points, so technically it's 40,000 points additionally for each additional destination. Putting it another way, if you're going for 15, then you might as well go for 20. You can generally value JetBlue points at between 1.3 to 1.5 cents per point. That means that level 1 with 15 destinations is worth 1,950 to 2,250. Level 2 is 2,600 to 3,000, and if you consider both, that's about 4,500 to 5,200. Not bad by any means. Note that this does not count basic blue or code shares. Also, it does need to be unique airports, so you can't keep going to the same ones. They're looking for you to visit 25 different places. One good thing though is that even if you are in a small area, different airports in that area count as different ones. So for example, in LA, you have a lot of choices. Each airport is its own destination. One big one to note if you are going for this is that the departure airport does not count. It's about the destination where you're landing. So let's say if you fly from LAX to BFU, then it's only counting BFU. On the East Coast, there's a lot of options in the 150 to 200 range for round trip. If you want to visit them anyways, then this might lower that cost and make it a lot cheaper, but it might not be worth doing a mileage run. We'll get into that in a minute. The 25 for 25 years of elite status gets a lot more interesting, also a lot more subjective depending on you. So one thing to note is that the 25 years of status is for Mosaic 1, which is their base level. It normally requires 50 tiles. This is equivalent to Delta Silver, United Silver, American Gold, or Alaska MVP. So pretty much the base level. The very good benefits you would expect, like move to Mint, are going to be Mosaic 3 and up, so just be aware. With Mosaic 1, you still are getting benefits, but it's more the basic ones, so even more upgrades at check-in, same-day switches, and first 2 checked bags are free and better boarding. The problem though is that some of those benefits you get with their cards. So for example, for the mid-level one, which is $99 a year, the perks are a bit worse, but they're still kind of there. So for example, 1 free checked bag instead of 2. One of the other options is getting their card, spending on it in order to get status. In this case, you need 50 tiles to get Mosaic 1, and 1 tile is going to be earned for each $1,000 charged to the card. So put another way, you need to spend $50,000 on the card in a year to get Mosaic 1. If we keep it simple and assume that it's everything else spends, so catch-all spends without a category, and then your opportunity cost here is 2%, that means that with a standard card, you're getting $1,000 in value, so let's say $1,000 in cash back. With this card, if you're only getting 1x back, then you're getting between $750 in value on the low end at that 1.3, and on the high end of 1.5 is $750 in value. That means that the effective cost per year in what you're giving up is about $250 to $350 per year. A bit over the top, but we arguably have a band for the value of that Mosaic status depending on how you want to treat it. On the low end via a card, that's $99, so about $2,500 in value over 25 years. In the moderate case, $250 is almost $6,300, and on the high case, $350 is almost $9,000. All of this is ignoring inflation, annual fees changing, benefits changing, and everything else that happens. Feel free to adjust as needed. But yeah, tons of ranges in value depending on how you want to look at it and how you value different things. On the high end though, if you are going for those 25 destinations, then almost 5,300 in points and almost 9,000 in value from Mosaic. It sounds great and the math can work, especially if you are strategic with the flights. One main trick is that connections count, so it doesn't matter how long you stay there, it counts as one of your destinations. Even with this though, it does feel very East Coast pilled. Taking a look at their map, even though there are a lot of options on the West Coast and in the middle, a lot of them don't connect to each other on the West Coast. A lot of the routing is through Boston or New York. For example, even though SFO and Salt Lake City both have JetBlue flights, there are not any flights between those two cities. It's just not a route. Instead though, you can fly from Salt Lake City to JFK or Boston. Even if it mathematically makes sense, it might be very tough if not impossible, depending on where you live. And to be fair, we could be out of Boston for let's say 2 or 3 weeks or a month or out of New York and kind of do this and it could work. It also just seems very stressful and maybe unnecessary. Even doing it optimally, it feels a little bit insane. Might make sense for some people, but yeah, maybe not us. To be fair, if you want to see all these places, I think that can make sense, but doing it as a speed run or mileage run feels a little bit much. Especially having to go from San Francisco to the East Coast to even make this work just makes it seem very not logical. On the other hand, if you already live in Boston or New York, then that can make a ton of sense. In that case, if you go for the 15 or the 20, it kind of feels like JetBlue is subsidizing a lot of weekend trips for this summer and fall. The one thing I miss about the East Coast is fall foliage. because that's not really here. But yeah, if you are over there, great way to see it and maybe fly around. If you are going to do this, I'd make sure either to get their card or another travel card to get value for those flights. Lots of options out there, mostly depends on the currencies you want to earn and the credits you want to deal with. On that note, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, AskSebby.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, but otherwise, it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. We also do have calculators for a lot of cards, and it should pop up if you search card name worth it AskSebby. Again, thank you to Moo for sponsoring today's video. If you made it to this point, leave some falling leaves emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, what are your credit card predictions for this year, and where do you see it going? Number 2, how do you think the lounge scene is going to change, and is it a good or bad thing? Number 3, do you think it's reasonable for me to not do this JetBlue thing, or does the math still work, therefore we should do it? I think the math can work, but it just sounds so exhausting. Also kind of curious if you're going for it. Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time. It's also 6 a.m. and I'm pretty exhausted as we speak. The sun is now up.